More than 350,000 children's products and toys, all made in communist China, were recalled this week. The toys violate the federal ban on lead paint, and there are new charges against manufacturers in China that produce toys for U.S. companies. An advocacy group says workers in Chinese toy factories are being abused and forced to work in unsafe conditions. Mary Snow has our report.
A startling look behind some of the biggest toy brands sold in the U.S. China Labor Watch describes conditions that often do not meet even rudimentary Chinese safety standards for factory workers. The U.S.-based advocacy group investigated and photographed 8 factories inside China where it says it found, quote, brutal labor abuses, including one where 1,000 junior high school students were working. Some of the factories failing to meet standards supply toys to companies in Japan, Europe, and the U.S., including Disney and Hasbro. One China trade expert not involved with the report says even when buyers hire inspectors, it's not difficult for factory owners to hide shady practices.
What happens often in China is that there's a kind of front door factory where these inspections can take place, but there are whole mazes of backdoor factories where the conditions are quite different.
In those so-called back factories, China Labor Watch finds wages are low, benefits are non-existent, work environments are dangerous, and living conditions are humiliating. It says workers often live in squalid dormitories and cites one case where more than 100 workers share one bathroom. The report also cites many factories verbally or even physically abuse employees. It accuses corporations, including Hasbro, of turning a blind eye to safety to pursue lower prices. Contacted by CNN, Hasbro said in a statement, it takes the report from China Labor Watch seriously, and we will conduct a thorough investigation into the areas of noncompliance cited in the report. Disney, the other U.S. company cited, says it investigates all reports of infringement and takes immediate actions to remediate. Both companies say they take the safety and well-being of their manufacturing workers seriously.
This all comes on the heels of Mattel recalling millions of toys for fear they were tainted with lead. A Chinese official was quoted in a state-run newspaper saying the toy maker must share the blame with Chinese manufacturers, and he pointed the finger at Mattel for not carrying out quality inspections. The toy maker says that safety of children is of utmost importance to the company, and it says it's working around the clock to improve its system. Mary Snow, CNN, New York.
Products imported from China account for about 60% of all product recalls this year. Many of these products are toys and children's clothing and jewelry. Joining me now to discuss the problem and what you can do to keep your family safe is Ed Mierzwinski, Program Director of the U.S. Public Interest Group, and Urvashi Rangan, Senior Scientist and Political Analyst at Consumer Reports. Welcome to you both. But before we begin, we should say that we also invited a representative from the toy industry, but they did not return our calls. Urvashi, let's get started with you. This week alone, we've seen more recalls, 250,000 SpongeBob SquarePants books and journals, the spinning tops. It just seems that it's never ending. What is your reaction to it? Just every single week, it seems we have another set of thousands of more products recalled.
Yeah, I think that American consumers are just seeing one after the other, from seafood to tires to toys. It seems to all be coming out of China. I think China's probably in the spotlight right now, and I think the problem goes deeper than that. We've got problems with import inspections here at our own borders, but there's also problems with quality control systems in the manufacturing.
And I want to pick up on that point. Who is responsible? Is it the U.S. manufacturers, or is it the Chinese suppliers? Who is ultimately supposed to make sure that these products are safe? Is it the federal government?
It's the U.S. manufacturer. They're supposed to comply with the U.S. law. If the toy has got their name on it, it's got to comply. It can't have lead in it. It can't have little magnets that come out. They can't blame a company in China for tests they should have been doing all along. And the U.S. retailers, they've got responsibility as well. The problem is the U.S. enforcement agency is so tiny, they're not afraid of it. The manufacturers and the retailers laugh at the Consumer Product Safety Commission. It cannot protect us at our borders.
Ed, let me follow up on that then. Does the government need to play a bigger role here? If they don't have the resources, then why don't they get enough the resources necessary?
Congress needs to allocate more money and more enforcement power to the CPSC in general, and then particularly at the border. We need independent third-party investigations and laboratory testing of all imports. Consumer groups, including Consumer Reports and U.S. PIRG, have called for a list of reforms that need to be done. The government has to play a role. When Congress gets back, we're confident that the Consumer Product Safety Commission and the safety of imports will be high on its list.
Urvashi, I want to pick up with you. The Consumer Reports, your group's safety blog, has some tips for what parents can do, because really that's what is at the heart of this. Parents want to know, what can I do to protect my children? What sort of advice do you give to parents?
Well, at this point, parents need to take stock of what they've got in their children's toy chest already. You also want to cross-reference that with some kind of recall site. Recalls.gov is a good place to start. You can also sign yourself up on a website and get emails sent to you when there are recalls of specific toys. You want to make sure that the toys that you have in your chest don't have peeling or chipping paint off of them. You want to make sure that all of those types of toys are out of reach, especially for children under the age of 2 who often put these things into their mouths directly.
And we also want to make sure that people have the safety blog so that parents know to turn to. It's blogs.consumerreports.org.safety. And you can also go to loudobbs.com, CNN.com for more information as well. Now, last week, Secretary of Health and Human Services Mike Leavitt and the Homeland Security Chief Michael Chertoff, they both held a news conference, and they were talking about the safety of products imported to our country. And what they were essentially saying is that it's impossible to check every single product. But this is what else they had to say.
We need to say to the rest of the world, if you intend to produce products for American consumers, you need to meet the standards of quality and safety that we expect. Not your standards, our standards. And then the United States needs to have a process in which we can assure that the quality standards are being met.
Ed, your thoughts on this? How do we make sure those quality standards are being met? Most consumers believe that companies would check that they have quality assurance departments. How do we make sure those standards are being met?
Well, first of all, consumer groups, labor unions, and human rights groups have known for years that our trade laws were never written to protect the safety of either workers or consumers. They were written, in fact, by the multinational corporations that have lobbied to keep the CPSC weak and not given it enough enforcement authority. Obviously, the CPSC has to have a bigger hammer to hit companies with when they break the law. That would be the first step. This president has failed miserably to nominate a consumer safety advocate to run the Consumer Product Safety Commission. It's running in place. They have no leadership. That's where we would start, absolutely.
And Urvashi, your group has recommendations.
We do, and we take them even a step further. While we agree that there are plenty of problems with the enforcement, there's also problems with the standards themselves. And so there's nothing with a lot of teeth to meet. Right now, the CPSC has very crude standards for lead in toys. It's about a total lead content. We think the standards need to be more specific, especially as it relates to the paint that's used on toys. We want to see the government set a standard of zero lead for paint used on toys and children's products.
That's a good starting point. All right. Thank you very much. Urvashi Rangan from Consumer Reports and Ed Mierzwinski from the U.S. Public Interest Group. Thank you both very much for your time. We appreciate your being with us today. And we have provided links to some helpful websites with lists of recall products and what parents should do on our website, loudobbs.com. Coming up, is the Iraqi